on here. So while she's getting the slide ready, I'm just going to read a little excerpt out of this book called Forest Bathing, and it's sort of a beautiful rundown of what Shinrin-yoku is, the Japanese that is translated into forest bath, or surrounding yourself by nature. So in this book, it says, "We are part of the natural world. Our rhythms are the rhythms of nature. As we walk slowly through the forest, seeing, listening, smelling, tasting, and touching, we bring our rhythms into step with nature. We may not travel very far on our forest walk, but in connecting us with nature, Shinrin-yoku takes us all the way home to our true selves." So I have a little pamphlet back there if you want to kind of take home a little bit of what I'm sharing with you today. But let's see, so we've got the slides up here. So first of all, I wanted to thank you for inviting me into your community this morning. It's really evident to me that your care for others and their well-being is a part of what you do here, so I appreciate being here this morning. My name's Mary Carpenter. I have a long hop family history, generations of hop growing here in the Yakima Valley. My great-great-grandfather was the first person to bring hops into the valley. So connecting with the land is really important to me, and part of what I'm going to share with you today is about how you can practice this locally. A lot of times people assume you have to go to the mountains to be into nature, but we have amazing parks and we have trails here that are overseen by Cowiche Canyon Conservancy, and I help lead nature walks with them. Shinrin-yoku walks with them, so I'm going to share a little bit about that with you today as well. I'm also an artist. I'm a printmaker, a painter, and I make paper flowers as well. And I am a mother of two. I have a 20 and a 22-year-old, and they're both artistic and musical, so that's really fun. And I'm just one who really loves encouraging and believes really strongly in the power of how encouraging can really, on a daily basis, can change the lives of others. So it's something really simple can make a huge difference in a person's day, and that's something I really strongly believe in. I also have a passion for children and families reconnecting through being in nature together, and so we are sort of developing more about that through these walks at Cowiche Canyon Conservancy. So, yeah. So Shinrin-yoku is about, it's not a hike, it's about going into nature and experiencing it with all of your senses slowly and intentionally. And it's not about distance, it's more about just reconnecting with yourself and discovering more about being present in the moment. There's a lot of invitations that someone who's guiding a forest bathing walk will encourage you to do to bring you into this moment. So all that noise on the outside sort of gets removed, and one of touching is a part of that, the sense of part of that. So you can see that on the slide up here. And then I also invite others on my walks to creatively engage in for our forest bathing time and bring that moment back into your everyday life. So as I said before, these walks happen on local trails here. Our next one is September 10, so I can share with you a little bit more about how to get connected with going on that. And I also enjoy, Shinrin-yoku is something you can practice in your neighborhood, on your front lawn, in your home, if you're not able to or your loved ones are not able to get outside, touching plants. Using this practice to just reconnect with any nature elements is something that you can do on a daily basis and with proven health benefits. So So forest bathing began in the early 1980s, and it was based on sort of a common sense and intuitive idea that being in the beautiful green forest of Japan would help people's overall well-being. There was also the idea that the people in Japan were in need of healing through nature. And so the idea of this campaign they started was also to reconnect people with the land so that the forests would be protected. And if people were encouraged to visit forests for their health, then they'd be more likely to want to conserve the land around them. So that was an important part of the beginning of Shinrin-yoku in Japan. So as I said, I help lead these walks with Kawachi Canyon Conservancy, and that is a wonderful resource if you want to look at how to connect with the land. It's for me, my hope in leading these walks is that we reconnect with nature and we honor those who called this land home before us, and who continue to do so, and that we reconnect with our spirit through caring for and being in nature. And the more we can do this, the more, as I said, we can invite future generations to do the same thing and connect with the land. At Kawachi Canyon Conservancy, we've kind of had a lot of discussion about basic ways, if people ask, while we're on the trail, how can we connect with nature more often and protect it. Number one, taking climate change seriously and seeing the big picture. And planting native plants is something that we can do as well. There's a Music and Monarchs coming up on the Kawachi Canyon Conservancy site that is going to touch on some of that as well. And then supporting organizations that are caring for the shrub steppe environment is also really important. And getting outside, that's probably the biggest thing. And, we can associate that with going to the mountains. But again, you can step out on your front lawn or be at home with your plants, or I like to take my shoes off and practice grounding. There's a lot of, there's the negative ions that are coming up from the earth, and with a lot of positive effect for our bodies and overall well-being. And making space to bring the natural world into your daily life is also a way that you can put this into practice. So that's where my creativity comes in, and this is kind of a heightened example of what I do. I create these dioramas, and they bring me back to moments where I've gone out into nature and experienced it. And whether it's, sometimes I'll take the lid off and I'll actually touch the natural elements. And part of the dioramas that I'm doing are also bringing into my daily life aspects of the shrub steppe that we might not normally associate with kind of rich beauty in nature, but we have so much of it locally right here. So I bring some of those elements here too. And you'll see on the back table there's a Mariposa lily, and that's the first kind of connection with nature where I really felt like I wanted to start reproducing the wildflowers that we have just in our shrub steppe area. And so when I refer back to that and see it on a daily basis, it really does bring me back into that moment when I was on the trail up at Rocky Top and just experiencing the relaxation of being up there. So that's kind of a way that I do it. But when we're on the trail, we have Japanese rice paper, and we place it up against these logs that have fallen and do relief rubbings of them. And then what I found on our last walk was that a lot of people were so engaged in that activity that they started doing relief rubbings of leaves, and then they were doing whole little compositions of these little moments that they've taken home and framed and refer back to. When you have something visual like that you refer back to, it really brings you back into that moment of relaxation that you experience with forest bathing. So there are a lot of health benefits that are proven with forest bathing, and those are that it boosts the immune system and increases your energy. It decreases anxiety, depression, and anger, and reduces stress and brings about just a state of relaxation. It literally lowers the stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, and those are probably that's probably the largest benefit that I've received from practicing it. I have quite a health history. I've had 16 surgeries in the last 20 years and was dealing with a degenerative arthritic disease called ankylosing spondylitis. And I have a bladder pacemaker implant that I deal with and fibromyalgia I deal with. I'm on the other side of the arthritis now. That's sort of a whole miracle story. But I realized when I was getting out into nature and having to slow down while everyone went ahead, I was in my crutches and in knee braces, that it was actually really a gift to slow down. I didn't realize that I was practicing forest bathing when everybody had to go ahead and I was just sitting there in nature. And my funniest moment with it is that I was laying down, I was in Ohana and I was laying down on this log bench, and I was so relaxed and taking in the environment around me and closed my eyes for a moment, and a forest ranger came up and to see if I was breathing. I was so relaxed. So it lowers your blood pressure and it improves your quality of sleep. So when you're out in nature, and we have some evergreens here, we have some great ponderosa pine along the trails here. The evergreens release something called phytoncides, and those have terpenes. And if you think about phytoncides like essential oil, like diffusing essential oil in your home when you're sleeping, there are proven health benefits such as reducing inflammation, and phytoncides are known and proven to up your natural killer cell activity. And if you think about natural killer cells like elements in your body that fight against the things that fight against your body, it is proven that being just around pine can help to increase that activity in your body. So that's a really wonderful thing. And sometimes it's just sitting under a tree. There's oil called hinoki oil, and I diffuse that at night. I put it in my baths to soak, and that's really helpful. It contains the phytoncides as well. So you can absorb those, you can take them in your olfactory system. So that's a really wonderful way to benefit. So in all of this sensory activity that we're doing when we go out onto the trail, one of the invitations that I ask if people want to be a part of is to picture ourselves as strongly rooted trees. And when we have a moment, usually I do this when we're grounding or taking off our shoes and coming into contact with the earth. So that's another touch element that happens. Sometimes we do it during a taste element where there's a tea ceremony and we take out pine needle tea and drink it together. So during these moments, I invite people and to come and sort of experience these kind of moments. So as a paper florist, this is sort of, again, these visual elements help bring us back into moments that I'm gonna share with you. And one of my heart, the things on my heart for our community is to bring this into the lives of those who don't have access to fresh or can't have access to fresh flowers. So I bring them into medical communities where people could just have a little, I call it a cup of cheer, and just this little moment, pop of color and enjoyment of a natural element if they can't have fresh flowers. So that's something I do as well. So I'm about to tell you about something that is really close to my heart, and it is called the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life is a metaphor that is used in trauma healing with children and families. It was introduced by someone named Nazelo Mlilo, and she runs a center called Pala, which is what you can see here, in South Africa. And she helped develop this Tree of Life methodology. And one of the invitations that I give when we're on the trail is to picture ourselves as strongly rooted trees. And I have a pamphlet in the back where you can go home and practice this yourself. I created one for myself. Last year was sort of kind of the tail end of survival mode and the beginning of thriving for me after a huge change in my life. And I was introduced to this concept by a friend who speaks on it. And it was the most wonderful experience. And so we do kind of a smaller version, and instead of creating a piece of art, I just invite people along the trail while we're doing our tea ceremony or practicing grounding and taking our shoes off and just quieting ourselves. It's just a powerful way to see all the strengths that are in your life and all the things that have added to your life that really help you be the person that you are, because I think sometimes we forget all of those elements that have come together to bring us to where we are today. And so I invite people to picture their root system, and within the root system, although you can't see it clearly here, here's another picture of this here. So within the root system, when children are going through this methodology and families in healing, and again, we can do this ourselves, they write down the people who are foundational in their life. And not everyone knows their DNA or their immediate family, so it really can be you imagining anyone that has, or anything that has contributed to what kind of grounds you and what has helped you be the person that you are today. I ask people to picture the daily activities in their life that just add beauty to their day, and it's kind of a way of being thankful too for just the everyday things. And then in the trunk, you imagine or would write, if you're creating your own tree of life, your life skills. And I did this with my friend's 4-year-old, and he was able to, off the top of his head, name 20 life skills he had, just like that. And it was really amazing. And we wrote it down for him, and we let him play. But again, when we're out on the forest and I give this invitation, it's sufficient to just imagine, so to get that picture into our heads. The branches are our hopes and dreams, and so I ask people to think about those things and take a moment to kind of ask God to help us bring those into being. The leaves represent people who are meaningful in our lives, and the fruit represents gifts that we've been given, whether they're tangible gifts. For me, it was my grandfather paying for my college education, which is part of what led me to being an artist. It can also be acts of caring, acts of love that we've been given. I've had a lot of people who've contributed to my life when I was going through all those surgeries and basically helped raise our kids while I was going through all of that. So what you can see here on the left is downtown in Yakima right now. So I was asked to be part of the Windows Alive project. And this is sort of another way in which I try to help people reconnect with nature. So you can practice Shinrin-yoku on the pavement in downtown Yakima in front of this. It's one of the things that you can do. So I have brought the forest sort of into everyday life by creating an 8-square-foot diorama that has moss and paper wildflowers. And we have a community project where we've invited people to fill out leaves, sort of like the leaves that are represented in the Tree of Life. And so we've had about 100 people fill out the name of someone that's meaningful in their life and how they've contributed to their life. And we've added those to this installation. So the girl represents children both locally, but also children in South Africa who are experiencing healing through creating their own Tree of Life. And the pine sprig that she's holding sort of is an invitation for you to go out onto the trail and to have this experience for yourself, or to do it at home, or just to get out into nature and experience the healing benefits from that. Paula couples this methodology with taking children out into nature, and so that's a really important element in healing that they share with others. Up on the upper right corner is my Tree of Life. I created one for myself, and when I step back and look at it, I kind of connect with that moment where I'm like, who am I if I'm down on myself or having a hard day or just being critical about something I've done that day? I just step back and look at that, and I'm a strongly rooted tree, and it's really a wonderful thing to do along the trail because you're having all of those sensory experiences, and so those all help you remember the things that are recalled. I really encourage people as well. Things are going to come up if you practice this at home, on your lawn, just to be aware that things can come up that you might want to bring to, whoever is counseling you in your life, whether that's a professional counselor. If it's really intense stuff, I absolutely recommend that. But these things do come up. So this diorama sort of represents this way of healing and this invitation into nature. Now, at Paula, and when children are practicing this methodology, they put all of their trees up that they've drawn, and it's called a forest of life. And I really recommend community doing this. So it might be something that your community wants to do together. You can, step right out into nature around you here, and it doesn't take long. People have done it in a shorter amount of time, where you can step out together and create just a really simple drawing and tree of life and fill in these elements. One of the things that is sort of a part of this healing process is that they put their forest of life up and then talk about when the storms of life come. And so I invite people, while we're out on the trail, to think, when these storms of life come, what can you do to protect your tree, yourself? And one of the things that you can do is regularly get out into nature. I have had a lot of change over my life in the last year in pretty indescribable ways. Entire body change, entire life change, the growth of my business, and going out and practicing Shinrin-yoku regularly is something that has helped ground me and helped me just handle all of the stress that does naturally come and surrounds those changes. So that is, I can't recommend enough how powerful this is. So again, I encourage people to just take a moment in their day, and like you've done this morning, and just take a brief moment to breathe. I even, on my Instagram, put out footage of when I've gone out and done forest bathing walks. And so I do like a minute and a half of just walking along a trail. And just encouraging people, if they're on their break, on their lunch hour, just take a moment to breathe and remember that we've got this natural world around us that is, that's just a part of the beauty of our lives. So again, this is another example of a diorama that I've done. So this is a post that I placed on Instagram. I was about to teach my first flower making class, and I was just kind of nervous, and I hadn't done it before, not on a larger scale with multiple people, and I work part-time at the YMCA there on River Road, and so I just went out to the Kawachi Canyon East Trailhead. It's sort of behind the Fred Meyer down to the left on Kawachi Canyon Road. And for 20 minutes, that was it. That was all I needed. I went out and practiced my Shinrin-yoku and went through all of the senses. I went up to the ponderosa pine and put my nose up to it, and the sap from the ponderosa pine smells like cream soda. So if you're ever... Yeah, I really recommend it. And it was absolutely delightful and relaxing moment. And there's a birch grove there, and I call it the listening grove. And I stood and I just closed my eyes and listened to the birds singing and the wind in the trees. And I had some pine needle tea with me, so I had that. And they're just listening, looking, the way that the birch leaves were just flitting in the wind. It just took all of that, I wouldn't call it anxiety, but I was nervous about teaching this first class, and just took me into this present moment, and it was just gone. And I was able to step into the class and really enjoy teaching it, and this is something that is really helpful. I have also been practicing 15 inspired meditative minutes, and I do this on my break at work. My break at work is 10 minutes, but I also do it before I go to work. So I step out on my front lawn and I just gather natural elements that are around, pieces of mowed grass that's dried, and I I created a little circle of nature. Just a little moment, fallen twigs, fresh grass as well. And it just brought me in to this moment and just kind of prepares me for my day, because I come into contact with a lot of people who are going through a lot of different health situations and are kind of intimidated about starting to, work with all this gym equipment. And I consider working at the YMCA and the work that I do there being a part of people's stories, and people's stories are really important to me. And so this sort of gives me a moment to just sort of prepare for a day of giving and being around and interacting with multiple people. So it's something that I really encourage, and it's fun, and it sort of brings us back into wonder. That's something that forest bathing does too, is it reminds us there's a bigger world around us. And I am kind of perpetually a kid at heart. And so nature, bringing the wonder of that and bringing us back into that moment, I believe is a continual, we're never too old to be brought back into absolute wonder about nature. And this is something that I found that really helps as well. So again, I shared this, there are multiple ways that you can experience forest bathing, and you can do this out on the trail here, but there are also, everyone can have plants in their home, and there are also people in hospital beds that, part of the reason why I create the dioramas that I create is that sometimes people in their hospital bed can't have fresh things, so having something by your bedside. I've got some smaller examples of that on the table back there that I give to people, so they can kind of come in contact with those natural elements and have that be a part of their day. I was talking about that wonder. One of my favorite flowers to create is this flower right here. It's just beginning to die off up at Mount Rainier National Park, but I absolutely love it. And this is a picture of me grounding near a stream out on the Cowiche Canyon Trail. And this is a picture of me just experiencing, the natural shrub step element. So I'm touching the rabbit brush and smelling it. And this was another one of those 20-minute moments before I was off to do something else. And I just took a little drive, pulled over, had my Shinrin-yoku moment, and then went about, I was about to meet with someone, and we were going to talk about something really serious. And this just sort of helped ground me before I went into that moment. And we have so many moments, if we just stop and look up, that can be this Shinrin-yoku practice in our lives. And sometimes I think I'm a person who's constantly looking up. And I think, you can take even 5-minute moments where you're looking at the sky. Fractals in nature, which are any repeated pattern in nature, are proven to help reduce stress by 60% within 5 minutes of stopping and putting this into practice. So, and it can be the veins in a leaf, it can be branches in a tree, it can be any repeated element in nature. So, one of the huge words in my life that I believe is a sort of a continual process is metamorphosis. So one of the things I noticed was that there were just butterflies everywhere the last time that a friend took me out and led me on a forest bathing walk. And so I went home and started creating the butterflies that I saw in paper. And whenever I'm sitting down to create this, I'm just brought back into that moment. So this is, again, a practice that you can regularly do. So cowichecanyon.org is where you can find signups for Shinrin-yoku walks, and we're hoping to do them more regularly. This will be my third that I've done with them with the group. I've guided walks with a lot of people, just one-on-one or 2 people, but we're starting to do it, we cap at 12 people. So if we cap at the walk, then you can jump in on the next one, but if your community here wants to do one as well, I'm happy to lead groups, so you can let me know about that. We take 12 people at a time, and just as a thank you for inviting me into your community today, if that's something you'd like to do, I would love to guide, plan a Shinrin-yoku walk with you all. I brought a few different things with me today to just sort of bring a little bit more education. So this Tree of Life pamphlet I have back there, and it just explains to you a little bit more about the elements in the Tree of Life. And it also, you could literally sit down and fill in some of this here and not have to worry about drawing a tree, even though I encourage drawing a tree. I put the tree on here so that if you wanted to take a moment when you get home and fill that in, you can do that. So I've got that back there for you, and it shares a little bit about what the Tree of Life is and how it was founded. And again, it's one of those I consider it a Shinrin-yoku practice because you're thinking about yourself connecting with nature and picturing yourself as a tree. And so for me, that's just a way that I can kind of reconnect. And I, recommend, if you're doing this, also to, go and look at some leaves and step out your front door and or into your neighborhood. Many mornings I'll go out into my neighborhood and walk across the street, and whatever natural elements I can come into contact with there, I just do a little Shinrin-yoku practice. And again, if you want to kind of dive deeper into it, this is a really great book. I got it on, I would say Amazon, but I really recommend that you go over to Inklings and say, hey, I want to order this book and support them. So I always like to encourage local business, but it's really beautiful. The pictures are beautiful in it, and it has a lot of practical ideas. It has recipes in the back for sort of the taste element, and so that's a good one to have. I also included a brochure back there that the Children in Nature Network put out, and they also coordinate with Casey Family Programs in our area that just helps kids reach their full potential. A lot of the children are in the foster care system that they work with, children and families. So this is 4 ways to practice self-care in nature, and it's just kind of a fun thing. At some point, I think I'll move from paper to doing the scanning of your phone thing. But for right now, we've got a hard copy on paper, and it just sort of shares with you different ways that you can experience nature briefly and on an everyday basis. So so that's what I do. Does anyone have any questions about forest bathing or anything like that? Okay, yeah, so you can let me know if you think of any questions, then we can talk more in the back. And again, if your community would like to go out as a group forest bathing, we can coordinate that and figure that out. So thank you so much for letting me share what's on my heart and my passion.
Wow.